you want to just follow up on Senator McDonald, okay, but then we'll go to Senator Farrell.
Thank you. It's just on the Northern Australia stuff while we're here. There's a lot of dust being kicked up on the costs to Australia of deployment. Can you provide us with any estimates that you've got of what that new or expanded facility is likely to cost Australia?
Do you want to talk about the framework?
Yeah, I mean, we are in discussions with the US. Our view is that the broad framework which we're looking at is that we would construct the facilities and the US would rent or lease them. So over time we would be seeking to make the arrangements cost neutral to the maximum extent possible under the agreements that we currently have, such as the Status of Forces Agreement and agreements that we have yet to negotiate.
All right. That's a helpful declaration of policy, and I believe that might be the first time we've heard that declared as such, certainly since the change of government. Cost neutral over the foreseeable future. Do you have any idea what the upfront costs are likely to look like to get up to that full deployment of 2,500?
It will be in the hundreds of millions, but at this stage there are a lot of variables in play as to what the final cost might be. It depends on what sort of facilities, where they are, the time frame over which they might be built, and the use that they might be put to. So it will be, I mean, it's not a trivial cost, but we still have a long way to go before we get to a final figure.
In what venue or forum are those negotiations being conducted?
Well, the negotiations would be bilateral negotiations between us and the United States. They would have a negotiating team. We would put together one and we would work it through.
Just to give you one example, I note that the CDF and most, or if not all, of the service chiefs are away at the moment at AUSMIN. Is that the venue where these negotiations are being had?
And AUSMIN is a policy forum which establishes the framework for the broad framework for the activities within the relationship. And
just a yes or no will do. Is that where
no,
these
it's not.
discussions?
That would not be the venue.
No.
It's not.
We do have a team within Defence that's working with their counterparts in the US to work through this. Because
how do I refer to that team in future? What's their designation or the status? The team.
The team. Yeah.
I mean, the negotiations will be led by me.
Yeah.
You know, when we do it. I mean, and I will put together a team of experts, depending on what's required.
Who heads up that team?
Me.
Okay, thank you.
And
That's
there'll be
helpful.
financial policy people as a part of the team.
Okay. Yeah. If you're looking at cost recovery over the medium or long term, it means you must have in mind some sort of length of deployment. Thus far it's been discussed as open-ended. But over what period do you hope to recover the costs of hundreds of millions of dollars?
Well, that's something that we would still have to negotiate.
That's in play at the moment?
Yeah.
All right. Could you just, before we move on, could you just provide us with an update of the US Air Force deployment to Tyndall? What is occurring there, if anything?
Current US Air Force deployments, I don't have the exact rotations that may be coming through, but it's part of a normal exercise participation at the moment.
It is intended, though, that be, you know, let's not get into semantics about whether it's a base or not, but that there is to be an ongoing commitment to... So mostly we've discussed the Marine contingent in Darwin. Can you just describe for us the status of the Air Force commitment to Tyndall?
You want to talk? The framework for that's still being developed.
Okay. Is that a whole separate conversation to what's occurring at Robertson?
Oh, not really. It's all within the same... I believe it to be in the same context, but it's you've got the two distinct parts. You've got the Marine 6-month rotations, and you have the enhanced US Air Force cooperation. That is still being developed in its framework.
Is the Air Force cooperation a step behind? Is that a reasonable
step behind? Yes, that's right.
It is.
Yeah.
What's deployed there at present?
In Tyndall today? I'd have to check on what the exercise activity is, if there is. I don't believe there is, but I will check for you.
Is it the case that aircraft and personnel would be stationed there on the basis of discrete exercises rather than a standing commitment that's there for a long period of time?
It's still being developed, but that would be my understanding. It's discrete activities.
I mean, we've had aircraft, US aircraft deployments to Northern Territory, Darwin and Tyndall for many years, and many different sorts of aircraft, including B-52 bombers, fighter aircraft, F-18 surveillance aircraft, so the full spectrum. And for exercises and for deployments. And so this is really an extension and development of that. And we're still in the process of working through what that might involve.
But this is a qualitative and quantitative increase, at least in tempo and in commitment and in capacity. This is not business as usual.
Potentially, but we're still working through
Still working that through.
I mean, it has waxed and waned over the years.
No, I recognise that. It sounded like
But
we
to
were
answer your first question, there is no exercise up there at the moment. I've just checked that with Air Force.
Okay, thanks. That's useful. No exercise, so that means there's no aircraft there.
No US air. Well, there could be US aircraft transiting Darwin, but there's no US Air Force exercise at Tyndall at
All
the
right.
moment.
Now, I live a couple of kilometres, not that far really, from Fleet Base West, and when naval vessels, whether they be submarines or carrier battle groups, parked out in Gauge roads, they neither confirm nor deny under long-standing policy whether they are carrying nuclear weapons. Yeah. Will that policy apply for aircraft moving through or based at Tyndall?
It's a standing US policy.
So that would, so if it's nuclear capable B-52s, for example, we won't know, same as the naval commitment.
That would have to be a part of the discussion that we have with the US, but the current US policy is they don't confirm nor deny it. But I look at it from an operational perspective, the chances of it are minimal.
Why is that? I mean, they don't want to have to fly the way back to Guam to pick up nuclear weapons in the event that they might need them.
In an operational sense, that would have to be as a part of our negotiation with the US Air Force on the employment within that framework that we're developing.
Without wanting to preempt the outcome, because you won't want to do that,
No.
is that status of neither confirm nor deny on the table? Is that a discussion that you want to have with the United States government?
The discussions we need to have with the US are about the conditions that would apply for the deployment of their aircraft to Australia. And at the moment, we haven't commenced those discussions and we haven't scoped what those discussions might involve.
All right. I might have misunderstood you, Air Marshal, so feel free to correct me. If it's the case that these are not operational deployments, they're training exercises on a rotating basis in and out of Tyndall, there would be no need for nuclear weapons
And
to be...
that was the context I was talking about in an exercise context. But there, and Brendan just spoke about the framework and what we need to develop for this enhanced operational capability into the future.
Yeah.
So
that's
all,
not
and as I
a
said,
training
it's
operation.
lagging behind the US Marine deployment. So this is still to be worked through.
Okay.
I mean,
As you work it through, I suppose, subject to how long I get to come to these committees, I'll be seeking updates on whether that has formed any part of the Australian negotiating position and where we end up landing.
And that's a reasonable question to ask us.
Thanks very much. I'll leave it there. Thank you, Chair.